Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. Welcome to our Tuesday. Let me get Brian up here. There we go. Hey, Brian. Our Tuesday 5 ritual arrows on the time where we help you with the content questions you have. Hopefully, you have some fun and fellowship. We already, Brian, in the queue have some folks with some questions. So after we get our housekeeping out of the way, we will certainly take care of those questions first. First come, first serve. Tell us what exam you're taking, where you're joining us from, and see how far. We get people from India. We've had people from South America. Sometimes the language barrier can be a little bit problematic, but that's okay. I always joke taking these FINRA NASAA exams is like learning a foreign language. And they say when you dream the foreign language, that's when you know it. So I guess when you have your first series exam dream, you're on the rack. If you do have a question for Brian or I, it's helpful if you tell us what exam you're taking before you ask us the question. Because depending on the question in the series is how it's tested. Sometimes, Brian, I can tell by the nature of the question that's a 9, a 10, a 4, but the SIE 7, that's a little 6, harder to decide. So that can be helpful. It's not necessary, but it is helpful. The best free resource for you is my YouTube channel. I've organized the YouTube channel based on series playlist. You find your series. Within your series, there'll be various playlists. The playlists are in suggested watch order. The videos are in suggested watch order. Please use the channel search bar. If you're looking for a particular topic, put parity in there, accrued interest, or margin, and all that content will magically appear. For example, I'm not going to give you a hard time, John, but in the chat, you want to go over Reg D, 506B, 506C. We're going to do it. Reg A, not Bob Marley music. But Brian and I have probably answered that question a gazillion times. So if you simply put Reg D into that channel search bar, I would imagine 10 videos will pop up. But we will answer it, and we will put it as a video, right? So if you're looking for particular information, use that channel bar. Now, if you're looking for a paid supplement, I think the best paid supplements out there are QBank if you don't already have one. That's until we convince Brian maybe he wants to write a QBank. I don't think it's going to happen. If you combine that, Brian's Test Geek video courses, which is a PDF practice exam, now you have a 15% discount code. Kaplan products and services. That's 15. 20% discount on his content. So that brings it down to a little over, I think, $100 all in on Brian. So I understand some people have resources, some people do not. But you have the resources, not time to be frugal. I'll be Kaplan contract exam guru exam me to teach a class a month for. And I'll be teaching the Series 7 on February 18th. Want to join me? Feel free to do so. Sign up at Kaplan. Again, 15% discount code. Let's see, what other house? We already.
Can you hear me tonight?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Your audio is very tinny, if you forgive the term.
Is it? Let me check and see what.
And
They grab the mic.
Cutting in and out a little bit.
Oh, I got it. I hooked up another mic. Let's.
Brian. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. Is that better?
Much better.
Yeah. The problem with having a studio is, look at all this stuff I got, and sometimes I hit the wrong button, right? So there's the whole shooting match, so to speak. Let me get rid of that. Right. So I got there's the setup, Brian. So it was grabbing see that camera behind me? It was grabbing that mic behind me. So thank you so much. Brian to the rescue. All right. Let me get rid of that. Get rid of that.
There you
There's
go.
us again. Back to.
There we go.
Boom. Okay. We're here every week doing our Q&A. We have various other communities. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. Hat trick are 3 successes in a row. And so hence Baby Brokers doing hat tricks. We're almost coming up on 900 members on that, Brian. So that community is a growing community. We have Reddit communities. We have R Series 6 for Series 6 test takers. We have R Series 7 for SIE and Series 7 test takers. R Series 66 for all the NASA exams, and R Series 24 for all the 9s, 10s, 24s, 4s, 57s, whatever. This live stream is available afterwards as a podcast, and I think we're ready to grab some questions. Let's go see what we got in the queue.
Let's do it.
All right, so boom, boom, boom. Can you go over Reg A, Reg D, 506B, 506C, and Reg S? John, you're first into the queue. Yeah, so we'll do it pretty quickly, but we can certainly do that. And again, there's all kinds of information. So I always joke, John, Regulation A is not Bob Marley music. Reg A is a safe harbor or an exempt transaction under 33. This one's kind of unique because we can sell this to the public. This is a way to sell these securities to the public without making an S1 registration statement, without going off that cooling off period. The main test question is, besides knowing that it's an exempt transaction, a safe harbor, John, is know that there's two tiers. And tier 1, we can raise up to $20 million. Tier 2, we can raise up to $75 million. But if we go to $75 million, then there's a suitability standard for those investors. They can only invest 10% of their net worth or 10% of their annual income, whichever is greater. And we'd also have to have audited financial statements. These are exempt transactions as well. So 506B and 506C are what we call private placements. These are investments by invitation only, right? Now, if we're using 506B, the testable distinction there, John, is that we can have up to 35 non-accredited investors. We can have as many institutional investors as we want, as many accredited investors as we want, but only up to 35 non-accredited, and we can't solicit. If we go with 506C, we can have as many institutional investors and accredited investors as we like, but no non-accredited investors as individuals, but we can solicit. Reg S is another safe harbor, another exempt transaction. I thought this one kind of interesting, Brian. Facebook, before they went public, was raising some money, and Goldman Sachs was going to do it as a private placement, but they were worried that it became too much of a public kind of a deal. And so they changed course and they went with a Reg S. And so this allows a U.S. corporation, could be others, but on the test, a U.S. corporation to sell unregistered securities overseas. We call that offshore. Offshore means not in the U.S., right? And then if you buy these securities offshore, there's going to be a holding period. That holding period is going to be 6 months, just like any other unregistered security. If you're a reporting company, that means you're filing 10 Qs and 10 Ks, reporting company with the SEC. Otherwise, it would be a year for the hold. I see that Brian added one more to your list there, John, I think, which is that state version. And remember, the state version is Rule 147. And to use that safe harbor, you have to have an issuer that has 80% of the business as assets with the state. You can only sell it to residents of the state. Residents could sell it 6 months later to some other folk. And then if you're taking a NASA exam, be careful on that 147, because that 147 does need to be registered on the state level through qualification, not 33. So that could be kind of a little bit of a trick on a NASA exam. All right, so we took care of John. Brian, you got anything you want to add to that?
Well, I'm thinking, how far is the Series 7 going into this anymore?
I don't know. I don't know.
Used to be quite a bit, no doubt.
I'm thinking, John, based on his Reg S, John, why don't you tell us in the chat what you're testing? I agree with you, Brian. I get the impression John may be a 24.
That might be Series 24.
He might be a 24 and not a 7.
Right. Yeah.
We'll find out. Here's our next one in the queue. If you want to submit questions early to the live stream, you certainly can. Just put them in the chat like these folks have done, or you can, send us an email. What's our next one? in the
Did you
wrong
freeze that
section
one?
here.
Did you
Now, let
freeze
me
up?
get rid of that. I got to get rid of the banner there. Every time I think I'm getting a little better at running of the studio here, I mess up on the audio. I mess up on the link, whatever the case may be. Okay, let's see. Here's Rosa's. Can value stock versus small cap fund? What are the keywords we look for in terms of investors' suitability and risk tolerance? Well, I'll take a shot at it, and then I'll give it to our friend Brian here to see what he thinks. I think it's mainly about the risk profile of the customer.
Yeah.
Small cap stocks are very aggressive. You have greater risk, but you have greater reward as well, right? And so the value stock is typically perceived to be trading below its fundamentals. This is big time on 65, 66. And what that would mean, fundamental analysis alone is a test question, is we're looking for value, a margin of safety in terms of price to book or price to low PE ratio, high dividend. That's what I think of. And so if you get a suitability question, how are these different? I would say that in terms of suitability, value stock is different from a small cap stock that is riskier. The small cap is a riskier equity with potentially greater upside and greater downside. I hesitate to say value stocks are safe. That is only relative to small cap, because remember, in stocks you can lose your money. But buying a value stock, think Warren Buffett here, Benjamin Graham. You have that margin of safety. Anything you want to add to that one, Brian?
No, you pretty much have it. It's a great question, actually.
Yeah, I like it.
As far as I'm looking at in the equity space, in the equity universe, value stock's going to be far on the lower risk profile spectrum, and the small cap far on the other side. So they're on
I totally
sides of the risk profile.
Would you add that in terms of the age of the customer? Perhaps an asset allocation.
I try not to pigeonhole ages.
Okay, you're not an ageist?
I'm not an ageist.
Okay,
I often tell people that I've seen a 70-year-old plunk down.
No, I'm with you. I remember I've had a guy who was old. I said, listen, he goes, Dean, I'm so old I don't buy green bananas anymore. And I said, well, listen, my compliance officer is going to call you because he's going to think I totally understand what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. But be prepared for that call. I was so excited because I knew he was going to chew out this command. How dare you tell me I'm too old, Amaro? So the other one that came up was floating rate securities. I don't know, Brian. I'll defer to you after I give it my shot. I'm not quite sure how much of a test issue this is. We used to have a thing called LIBOR, and LIBOR had a major kind of a crisis in terms of shenanigans. And so now for floating rate securities, the base rate is what's called SOFR. SOFR is the secured overnight financing rate. It's a broad measure of the cost of borrowing overnight. So that's usually base rate. And then when you hear the word basis point, or you want to sound like a player, BIPs, basis points is about yield, not price. And so it's going to move based on BIPs or basis points against the reference or benchmark. The way I think of it is 100 basis points is 1%. So the difference of a 7% coupon and an 8% coupon is 100 basis points, 1%. Same as a bond point, basically. I think of a BIP as 10 cents, right? So if it's 50 basis points, it's $5. If it's 100 basis points, it's $10. Here's how this plays out as a test issue. If Brian has a preferred stock that pays him 50 bips, 50 basis points over SOFR, and the stock paid 5%, when they reset 50 bips, he's going to get 5.5%. As that base rate goes up, so does Brian's payment. As that base rate comes down, so does Brian's payment. When this shows up, I think it's low probability. But when it does shows up, it's that part about this thing going up or down against that base rate, which would be good. If interest rates are going up and the payments going up, that's good for Brian. But, if rates are coming down, not so good. Anything you would add to that, Brian, in terms of probability?
That's it. It's low probability, an answer choice, whether it's a correct one or not, whether it's actually the root of the test question or not, I don't know. How far away is this from variable rate notes, right?
Yeah. And, like I say, let's put it this way. If you told us you missed the mark because of,
floating rates,
we're going to say, you had bigger problems. All right, let's see our next one. Austin, suitability for insurance products. Well, I would tell you, you're taking a securities test, and in general, FINRA doesn't like insurance products or insurance agents. I'm joking, but There's a heightened suitability for a little bit. Yeah, there's heightened suitability for any insurance product. Again, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. 65 NASAA exams, maybe 2 or 3. I would definitely have an understanding of a variable annuity and how that works, and making sure that they've maxed out every other kind of retirement plan they have available to them. But suitability isn't so based on the insurance product. It depends on the insurance product that's being discussed, right? So what I mean by that is that they want to buy term, they want to buy whole life, universal. That is different, buying insurance to insure against risk versus buying an insurance product like an equity indexed annuity or a variable annuity, which is kind of more of an investment oriented insurance product. Your thoughts on that, Brian?
I do recall a Series 65 question about the cost analysis. Is that what it was?
Oh, that does show up. A cost, benefits
I
analysis.
think of it, since you and I are
Needs analysis. Needs analysis.
That's right.
Needs
Cost
analysis. That does show up, Austin. So we do a needs analysis. Listen, if I'm the one recommending to you insurance, it's really bad because I'm not an insurance guy. But I have a friend, and I said, hey, Jim, you need some insurance. And he goes, well, I don't want to make a bet with an insurance company that I got to die to collect. I said, Jim, it's not about you. It's about Michelle and your 2 daughters and what happens to them if you're no longer around. We need to know how much money you need in life insurance. So if something does happen to you, you can take care of that, the college, whatever, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, needs analysis, definitely there. Well, you happen to be lucky, Christopher, because the test geek himself is here to answer this question. So I see in BL, I'm assuming you mean Brian Lee, the guy on the other side of the screen there. Right of rescission is made to be made whole. It includes what you paid, interest plus court costs, minus income. Let me first take a shot on it. I think it depends on whether it was an investment advisory right of rescission or an investment right of rescission, right? That's when on the investment advisory side is where we're typically plussing or minusing, not so much on the investment vehicle side of it. What your thoughts, Brian? It's your note?
It was always a Series 63 question. Mm-hmm. Not so much 65, maybe 66. But that's essentially what it's asking for.
But hey, no, he says he saw it in your notes. Let me just put Brian's email. Just send him an email. Right. He's more than happy to.
Yeah, please.
To talk to you about it. So let me just get Brian's email here. Where is Brian's email?
Yeah, because if the guy's made money on the investment, we're not going to pay him.
Well, remember, he gets the choice, right? I don't think it's very testable, but the right of rescission means you have 30 days to decide whether you want to keep the investment or be made whole. We know what you're going to do. Because let me think about it. At the end of 30 days, if it's worth more than the right of rescission, you're going to say, I'll keep it. So just send Brian an email, and he has a copy of his notes, and tell him where it's at. I'm sure he's more than happy to kind of explain that to you. Again, I don't think it's a big test issue. Yeah, Brian, I don't know if this guy ever got a hold of you, but my goodness, he had like 4. It looked like he was taking your test geek exam on the YouTube channel, and literally commenting on every question to me about why the answer is what it is. And I said, listen, reach out to Brian. I said, this is a self-service YouTube channel. It's not tutoring. So either book tutoring with Brian or book tutoring with me.
I get a few that question the test questions.
Yeah.
Generally, they're not wrong. They've been tried and tested for many years.
I said, go with Brian. Okay. Testing this Friday. All right, Michael, you've been with us a few weeks, so we'll be sending you some good test vibes. 81 on Past Perfect. You should have no reason not to feel confident. I think that's great. I think you're on track for the hat trick for sure. I love it. Series 7 on Chapter 7. I don't know municipal debt. Any tips? Well, one tip I would tell you, Nick, is that municipal securities are very testable. And what I would recommend you do is take a sheet of paper and fold it in half.
Yep.
And on one side, write all the terms associated with GOs, and on the other, all the terms associated with revenue.
Yep.
Because a big part of those questions are distinguishing between GO, taxes, voter approval, revenue, user fees, no voter approval. So that would be one thing I would recommend as you're studying along. Make sure you understand syndicate as it relates to municipal underwritings, that you understand that process, the notice of sale, the bond buyer, divided, undivided syndicate, the components of the spread, the management fee, the additional takedown, selling concession, and those do total takedown, compensation, and participants. You have any thoughts on that, Brian?
I recommend that sheet of paper with the characteristics of each muni is
Nick, if you go to the search bar, you can find, I think I have a tutoring replay where we did that. We took an hour talking munis, and I think we cut the whiteboard in half. I'll try and dig it up myself and put it in the video description. But yeah, it's there in tutoring replays in that playlist. There's a muni tutoring replay where you can watch me do that.
I wrote a little 17-question muni quiz.
Did you?
7. I still have it. If somebody wants it, just email me.
There you go. We just put Brian's email, Brian at Test Geek Exam Prep.
37.
He's giving away the store. Don't give it away too soon there, Brian. maybe Brian's like retiring.
He's not anymore, Dean.
What's that?
I don't buy green bananas anymore.
There you go. Don't buy green bananas anymore. Oh, man, this just really turns me on. Somebody who's reading the damn book. I love it. I love it.
3 times.
Yeah, listen, people say, do I have to read the book? Yes, you have to read the book. Really? I have to read the book. You have to read the book.
It's so boring.
Cover to cover. Now, this is where they get incredulous with me, Brian. And I say in as close to one setting as possible. No taking any notes. Just try to see what's between the covers. Because I personally, as a test taker, like to go back and do a second reading once I'm a little more informed about what's testable. I don't know if you've had this, Brian, where somebody has highlighted the entire book as they read, and I now have to say, go get a different color highlighter now that you're a little more informed about what's important or not. So kudos to you. I wish everybody would read the damn book. However, I would say, Brian, when I get weak, when I get really weak, thousands of times somebody asks me, I go, okay, maybe you can skip partnerships and margin. Maybe. Your guys' registration process, we get so much feedback on that, Michael. That whole podcast series, I will link to it. Brian and I did Test Geek and the Guru. We did a podcast series for 66 and 65, and we get lots of great feedback back. That is a particular class replay where I wrote Brian into teaching an evening class for. I'm about to get him back on the schedule. And people just, really, we get all kinds of feedback. I don't know how many views we got, Brian. It's incredible.
Yeah,
but I'll link to that, and I'll link to both those podcast series too.
I still get requests every other day for the cheat sheet.
Brian has made the offer. I told you he's been giving some free stuff away, and I always say this. I just wish he wouldn't call it a cheat sheet because I'm always afraid somebody's going to go to the exam and this thing's going to say cheat sheet or Anyways, take him up on the offer. It's a great little summary of all the various boxes. I use them in tutoring and say, okay, where are you in this box? Which box are we in? So take him up on that too. 65 BD selling from their inventory. Well, there's no exemption, Christopher, for trading from your inventory. No, there's no disclosure or consent necessary for me as a market maker to charge you a markup or to charge you a markdown. Now that disclosure will be made on the confirmation, but I don't need your consent to trade. Now, if I'm on a fiduciary as well, Christopher, I'd like more context in this question. But I just take right out of this, you've got exempt, non-exempt. I'm just going to take that out of your banner because that's not even associated with this. What's associated with inventory is this idea that I'm acting at a dealer principal. I'm trading against you, right? I'm going to charge you a markup or a markdown. That's my spread. And then the second thing, I think where maybe you're getting this, up there, but maybe getting confused. Consent would be if I'm both an investment advisory firm with an affiliated broker dealer, and I'm going to do that. Then I have to have consent for those transactions. The other way this comes up is consent to do a customer cross as well, where we act in dual agency. Brian, your thoughts on that?
That's exactly right. That's where the confusion comes, is when the IA, when you're in a fiduciary standpoint and selling from inventory, the regulatory requirement is much higher than broker. Broker dealers do it all the time. They just disclose it on the confirm. There's no consent or anything. Yeah. It's when it gets to the IA, it's a little bit more raised.
Right on. Nick from Minnesota. I love Minnesota. I spent a lot of time in Minnesota. I bought a camera that I can show you. It's snowing out here. And everybody's kind of surprised that I actually have snow gear. So I whipped out my snow boots this morning and my parka, and everybody goes, you got snow stuff? I thought all you do is wear shorts and Birkenstocks and in Vegas. I go, no, I'm ready for winter. I know I've got to be prepared for Mother Nature. Taking 7 on Thursday. Hopefully, we can go over options. Break evens, max gain, max loss. Nick, it's a live stream Q&A. It's not a tutoring session. So I don't know what to tell you about that, Nick. Yeah, I just don't think I would like to know what you're scoring on that. I would tell you there's 9 option strategies. Let me put it this way, Nick. I will link to the 3 videos that you need to watch to go over all of that for your entire Series 7. This is Tuesday. You'd be all in 4 or 5 hours on my option video series. I start with the basics, then I do stock plus options, then I do advanced option strategies. So I think it's 3 or 4 videos. I will link to that in the video description, so you can watch that. I just don't think there's any way for us, Brian and I, to do this, even though Brian loves his whiteboard. If I turned him loose on the whiteboard to answer that, we would be here till like 10 o'clock. So
I got 2 things.
Dean,
I got 2 things. Guess what? I got a little option quiz. If you want it, email me. I'll send it.
There you go, Nick, and you can hang. By the way, Brian was kind enough too to do that. Hold on, this is my contractor. You got control of the things for a minute, Brian.
Okay. And I'm sorry, Nick, but I'm going to chastise you a little bit. Why are you worried about your option break-evens 48 hours before your test? We should have had that taken care of a week or 2 ago. Again, it's not as far reaching as the QBank. That I'll tell you. It's far more basic. My 40-question option quiz covers 98% of all the options you're going to see. Email me. I'll send you the option quiz.
I always have to check with my contractor, make sure they didn't do something. They're saying, hey, Dean, it's snowing. You need to go fix this.
So we're good.
All right. What do you need to know about a QUIA? I don't even know what that is, BC Davis. Can you spell that out for us? Q, I would imagine qualified. I don't know.
Investment advisor?
I have no idea. So listen, we don't have any idea, then it's not important. And so, but put it in the chat what that actually acronym is for, and then we can tell you whether Brian and I just didn't think of it that way.
If you and I don't know it, Dean.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. 10 for 10 for Brian. Woo! A 10 on a 1 to 10 scale. I like it. Oh, it's coming in. All right. Good investment. There you go. Do you have some shills? Did you tell people to come on here and pump the chat? Does he have a payment plan
for the video?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, we're not in the financing business, Jeff. Every once in a while, I ask Brian if, he'll, take care of somebody, but no, that's not how it works. You're getting into a business. Good news, Jeff. If you are poor and can't afford it now, good news, you will be able to afford much more, because our industry is great for people who poor and deserve to be rich. And, I'm going to say no on Brian's behalf, because the problem too, this is a public forum and this is inappropriate to ask this in a public forum, because anybody who ever watches this replay, we have over 6 million views, is going to be starting to call Brian and say, hey, I saw Jeff and you gave him a payment plan. How about me? So I will tell you this, Jeff, if you send me an email at dean@examprep.com, Brian's PDF is less. So his video course all in is about 100, but his final is, I think, a little over $20. His PDF is, I think, what is it, 40, 50 bucks?
39.
If you send me an email, I'll forward that to Brian. I'll get that from Brian for you. And then, I'll buy Brian some cocktails next time I see him. If you're watching this in replay, please don't in a public forum do this again, because the answer will be absolutely not.
Unless you buy me cocktails.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I would warn you, though, that could cost me more.
Well, most certainly will.
I may have not made a good deal on your behalf, Jeff, because our friend Brian has very fine tastes in adult beverages. He's not kidding about his content distilling potatoes into premium vodka. I completed my testing journey this week by successfully passing the 65. All right. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo. There you go. So I think we, Bonnie, did you catch the tips? I think we answered that already. We gave some tips on that.
Yeah.
Series exam on Thursday. I watched all your content. Well, thank you so much. 78, 77, 74. Love it. That's right where you need to be. 70 on Brian. You're going to pick up points on Brian's, but that's close. Brian's is a good correlation. So I'm not worried about you because I know you're going to be busy Wednesday. Yeah. So any advice? Rinse and repeat.
Yep.
If you're going Thursday, I do have some advice. You've got to be confident in the execution of your study plan. Based on those practice test scores, I'm not worried about it, that you've executed your study plan. You got to be confident in yourself. Most importantly, on Thursday, you've got to be confident in your answers. You can't get wobbly. So the only thing I worry about it with a 70 is just you get wobbly instead of just finishing strong. If you finish strong, don't get wobbly, you'll be fine. Now, we do have something that has a 100% pass rate.
No, please, no.
Okay, Marcel, I haven't had a chance to check the email. Been busy here off grid. We got a major winter storm here, so I've been kind of hunkering down and checking everything, making sure all my, the key of off grid is having redundancy. So I got to go check and make sure all my redundancies in place. I did get Brian a home for the Bumblebee. I bought a container that is for cars.
There you go.
And I'm having cut a custom little door in there for me, so I'm gonna pull a little Bumblebee in there. And
okay.
So my sports car, I feel bad. She's out here in the snow, and I know she's in shock. Like, how could he do this to me? I will return that. Does that look good for you? Let's see. Yeah, I like that. Marcel, send me the link. That's a good way to go. Absolutely. For a sell stop limit, I always get confused which one to look at, slobs over bliss. Well, you answered your own question here. A sell stop is either going to turn into a market order or a limit order. It's a contingency. I'm telling my broker, if this, then sell it at the market, sell stop, or if this, then sell it at my price or better, sell stop limit. So it doesn't matter whether it's a sell stop that turns into a market order or a sell stop that turns into a limit order. All sell stops are below the market, hence slobs over bliss, right? So is it a sell stop or a stop limit? Well, they're synonymous. I think what you're getting confused with is just one contingency, a limit order. If it's just a sell limit, no stop. I want my price or more than it goes above, hence slobs over bliss. So remember, both sell stops and buy stops can either, when triggered, become market orders, or when triggered can become limit orders. Doesn't matter whether they, when hit the trigger, pull the trigger, get elected, doesn't matter. Buy stop is above, slobs over bliss, and sell stops are below. Brian, any comments on that? I don't think it's going to, again, Luke, I don't think it's going to cause you to miss your exam, regardless of what exam that is.
That is correct. Yep.
Hi, Dean and Brian. Tomorrow, Yasha, I think I sent you an email today. So tomorrow is the day. Oh, my goodness. Well, then my email probably didn't have the sense of urgency. 65. I did Brian's final. There you go. We don't need to keep our fingers crossed for you, Yasha. There is no finger crossing necessary. You've got your English is your third language. Oh, my goodness, Yasha. Oh, I feel I have no aptitude for foreign language. So I think anybody like yourself who can do 3 is a genius. I mean, in my world, because I can barely handle my native tongue even then. I always tell Yasha people I'm a literature major, not an English major. Because when they think I'm an English major, they think that I can actually diagram sentences and I'm, know verbs and, nouns and that kind of thing. And I had one of my college professors, he said, Dean, your grammar is not quite reliable. Yasha, I don't know why I did not take Spanish in college. I took French instead. And my French professor says, Dean, I know you love France and you love the French language, and I'd like to give you an A, but I really in good conscience, you can't do it because you have no aptitude for the French language. And I said, you know what? You give me the A and I will never tell anybody I speak a foreign language. FINRA, it was funny. I did a lot of business in Portuguese speaking countries. And it was funny, Brian. FINRA says, well, how are you, being a supervisor if they're all speaking in Portuguese? And I said, well, listen, I've been pretty blessed. I've traveled the world for many countries for different business opportunities. And I have never once been in a meeting where everybody isn't speaking English. So I guess I got lucky. Thanks for joining us on LinkedIn. By the way, though, I think that's going to be great. 79, you should be okay. Because Brian's tests are tough. So that 79 is a real score you can count on as a mark. So we're expecting good news. I tell you what, I'm going to do it early for you. Wow, there's every expectation. Tomorrow you're getting that testing victory. Thanks so much for everything. I finished my SIE, my 63 at the age of 18. Wow. While being the youngest intern in New York. Wow. How much time will it take for a brokerage to schedule for Series 7? Well, it depends on the firm completely. I mean, some firms have entire departments dedicated to this and can turn this thing around real quick. Other firms, it's one person does 3 of them a year and it takes them a couple weeks. I wouldn't even want to guess, depending on the firm. I imagine if you're an intern on the New York, your firm is a firm that has the resources to turn this around rather quick. But I wouldn't even want to give any kind of a window, because what would happen is you'd go say, oh, this guy on YouTube told me the window is, and they'll say, well, that's why I don't want you watching YouTube. Right. So, but hey, thanks for joining us from LinkedIn, because our preferred platform is YouTube. I always warm my heart when I see people joining us from LinkedIn or Facebook, because we broadcast to those as well. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, once the firm submits the U4 to FINRA, they generally promise a 48-hour turnaround.
Okay, but getting it there.
But how soon is the firm going to get the U4 there? That's the problem.
Yeah. Testing 7 next Monday. Just submitting those regs just to distinguish what I saw. I'm trying to get the last few points. You just got to finish strong, really, John. That's it. So you're taking 7. So we thought your questions were not material to your success on Monday. I think you should know the basics of a safe harbor, exempt transactions. Yes. Do I think you need to know the definition of a credit investor? I do. That 1, 2, 3 million, 200,000, 300. Good news, when you're a 7 good standing, you're accredited. But again, it's one of those things that if you come back and tell me that's what did you in, I'm going to say, I don't think so. You got to stay on the broad avenues and highways of Series 7, John. The broad avenues and highways are the function 3 investment vehicles. And in that, knowing options, munis, and mutual funds. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah. And John, one other thing with that list of exempt transactions you gave us, there's one important one that still has probably multiple questions, is Rule 144.
Yeah. You didn't ask about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 144, very test. A good way to remember is 144. Yep. So, if I'm a control person, the stock I own is called control stock. I like to use Larry Ellison. He has $2 billion, 2 billion shares of Oracle. We're not going to let Larry call his broker and dump 2 billion shares of Oracle into the public marketplace, because the marketplace would crater. Now, I would tell you, Larry says he's never, ever going to sell a share, and he hasn't. He's owned 2 billion shares for forever. But if he wanted to sell, he'd have to file Form 144. This is very testable. And that would be good for 90 days. Very testable. He has to do it at or prior to the sale. Over that 90-day period, he can sell up to 1% of the outstanding shares of Oracle, or the last 4 weeks trading volume, whichever is greater. And I think of it as 1-4 up to 4 times a year. 1-4-4. So that, probably very testable. Now remember, just, there's 2 types of stock. And if the stock that the control person owns is unregistered, then they're going to have to hold it for 6 months. If he bought it in a public marketplace, not a problem. For example, Larry Ellison served on the board of Tesla. To show his support for Tesla, he bought 5 million shares in the public marketplace. There's no holding period on that stock. He got in the public marketplace. Does he still have to file a form? He does. Luis, how does it work if Mary leaves the bank account to Joe? Yeah, this was weird, Luis. I think I saw you did this on the channel or somewhere, and I told you to join us Tuesday. I would like more context, and I know when people sometimes miss the mark, maybe there's a mind melt. But if Mary leaves the bank account to Joe, first thing, it's not going to be a bank account on the test. It's going to be a brokerage account, and it depends on the title at retirement to Martha. Well, the IRA is very testable. These are all separate. When I saw the question you sent me, I just kind of thought, man, this is so convoluted. So let me clean this up in terms of test issues. If this is an individual retirement account and Mary dies and Joe is not her spouse, then Joe has 10 years to take the distributions from the IRA. That is very testable. So that's number one. We don't know. If Joe is Mary's husband, then that doesn't apply. Next thing, if it's joint tenants in common or tenants in common, The decedent share goes to their state or beneficiary. If it's joint tenants with rights or survivorship, decedent shares goes to the surviving party. I'm not sure, Luis, you told me this was all one big giant question. I've never seen that before. I never heard of that before, which is kind of odd, right? And the trust would already have a beneficiary, and the beneficiary wouldn't change based on Mary's death. I mean, that would have been spelled out. So that's my best guess at what you told me you saw. But, I always joke when you go into the cave to slay the dragon. Sometimes I think people get a good look at the dragon. Sometimes I don't. And I think you might have PTSD from your trip into the cave. Your thoughts on this one, Brian?
Yeah, Dean, I actually have heard this question before.
And what's your answer to this question?
Well, again, the way in which Luis has written it is incorrect. It's not a bank account. It's going to state whether it's rights or survivorship or tenants in common, right? That's going to determine what happens with Joe.
Yeah.
On an IRA, you can name anybody as a beneficiary. So Martha's going to get the IRA. And then the trust, whoever the beneficiary for everything else, I believe is the word that's supposed to be in there, those assets will go to those named beneficiaries. Almost everything has a beneficiary to it, right?
Yeah.
Except for the bank account. The bank account's either rights or survivorship, which means it won't even go into probate. It'll go straight to Joe. So it's on there. I've seen it on the test before. I've heard about it on the test before. It's not a bank account. Even if it is, it's got to be tenants in common or rights or survivorship.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is there's lots of dead people on the exams, right? So lots of dead people so dead grandmas, the whole thing about, step up in basis. I mean, so that is very testable. So I hope that was helpful, Louise. That is about as helpful as I can kind of. I'm just noticing too that Mary is different from Martha. So as I recall, you had you told me you saw 3 or 4 different people with 3 or 4 different accounts, and
that's right.
I just think it would be
and there's not enough information in that statement that he's given to give a good.
And that's why I didn't respond on the channel. I said join us on Tuesday so we could just talk about it rather than try to write you some email based on some vague information. Testing Series 7, February 12th. Taking the diagnostic with Notman this week. Okay, well, Rosa, that'll be our good, nice score, right? I like that. About 7-10 days out, Brian and I both think you should start doing practice tests, take intellectual inventory, see where you're at, get your mark, so you know what kind of remediation is going to be necessary. You're going to have to do a lot of remediation, a little remediation. So that first score is important. I don't think it's as important as, future scores, but we need a score. I had somebody today, I said, I need a score from you. You can tell me all you want about how you feel, but, that doesn't really help us with a data point. So take a practice test, get back to me with a score. Taking the Series 23. I don't even know, Cheese, what a 23 is. And I'm not even sure why you would take a 23 instead of a 24. My opinion is there's something funky already. Do you already have a 7? Let me just use my Google machine. You know what a Series 3? I know what a 22 is.
That's what I was thinking. It's the real estate stuff, right?
For financials becoming general securities for sale, it's an alternative to a 24 and can be taken by registered. I'm not sure why you would do that. That's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I would push back on whoever this is that's telling you that your new job. I would tell them, why am I taking a 23 instead of a 24? I mean, I don't ever believe in getting limited registrations ever. If somebody offers you full registration, I would do that. So I don't know if anybody's selling 23 materials, and maybe that's why they told you 24. I would start Cheese Clack. Go to the FINRA website and get the test content outline for this thing. See what that looks like. And drop either Brian or I an email. I'd love to look at it.
Yeah,
but I don't know why you'd be taking a 23.
I'm going on FINRA tomorrow to look at this thing.
Yeah, it's what it is. Testing on Monday for 66. That's great. Any other recommendations? No, rinse and repeat. What you're doing is working. As long as you stay in that range, all you got to do is stick the landing, right?
I like it. That's good.
That's what we love to hear.
Real good.
Any tips on annuity? I got 5 of those. Well, yeah, you need to know about variable annuities. I'll link Megan in the video description to a video I have on variable annuities. And so watch that. I think I cover pretty much everything you could get asked about. Brian, any tips on annuity?
I have at least 3 annuity questions, maybe 4 on my Series 7 final exam.
Yeah, I think they're
I know
pretty
I have
spot on too.
I know I have several of them.
Yeah, pretty spot on. So I'll link Megan to variable annuities in the video description. But remember, you could also put variable annuities into the search bar on the channel. And by the way, it's variable annuities on 7. That's it. Period. Full stop. And lots of stuff will come up. I got practice questions and lectures and all kinds of stuff. 65 here. I cannot get down exempt securities. Well, I don't think you need to. I really don't. I think, Romulus, that people go completely overkill on registration of securities. On all exams, 65 included, maybe 2 or 3. And it's not about exempt securities. It's not about who doesn't have to register. I think of exempt securities as a noun. It's a list. Do I think you need to memorize that list? Absolutely not. I think of exempt transactions as a verb, and that's where the action's at. So as Brian says, and I love this, he thinks that when you hear the word non-exempt security on these NASA exams, you should immediately say corporate security. Now the issue becomes, well, if we're not registering a security, why? Or how are we going to register the non-exempt security? That's the key, non-exempt. Are we going to use qualification? Are we going to use coordination? Is it less than 10 offers? So I think that's where the action is. So I don't think it's a problem that you're struggling with exempt securities. I don't want it to become a rabbit hole where it lures you into the rocks because you're spending too much time on it. Your thoughts, Brian?
Yeah, it's exactly right. Especially for the 65, it is definitely. There's 2 things people overkill on because of the textbooks. I'm going to rail on textbooks again. That's exempt securities and math. There's 2 things people go down rabbit holes on for the Series 65 that's unnecessary.
Yeah, and by the way, Romulus,
the foundation, the fundamental.
In terms of registration, there are way more questions on registrations of investment advisors and investment advisor reps than there are securities, right? Couple questions on broker dealers and agents of broker dealers, 3 or 4. The action there is on the investment advisory side and that part of your test. And in terms of laws, the 2 big sections there are disclosures and unethical business practices. So
exactly.
There you go. I think all is well on my end. I think you're still, let's see. No, you're not in Vegas anymore. I'm looking at Brian's whiteboard. And when I see that timber up there, right now, I don't think Brian should have gone out of his backyard and chopped down 1,000-year-old redwood to make his dry erase board frame. But
no, I just got to Seattle this morning. Yeah, just came up this morning. Yeah.
When you come back to Vegas?
Well, I got jury duty next week, so that's
because I told you my plan is I got the Bumblebee here. I got the new thing to put it in. And my plan is to come see you and make my little road trips into Vegas in the Bumblebee, my sports car.
There you go.
That's the plan. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see if it works. Past the 66. Woohoo! No problem. We know people got other things going on in life, so I get it. Not a problem. What is Brian's email for the cheat sheet? Let's go get Brian's email here. There it is. Brian at testgeekexamprep.com.
It's me.
By the way, I send you the same email. I told you, Brian, the guy, anytime you want to talk about Brian's content, I just send you this email. So I got other things to do. Brian is more than happy to talk to you about his content. Obviously, if I didn't think it was good content, I wouldn't have him on the screen with me and we wouldn't have things on his channel. So I don't need to tell you I think it's the best, but it's not my job to, you can talk to the person who wrote the question and what he had in mind.
And there's 99% chance that the question is right. That's
I know. I think people, I don't think, Brian, listen, there are people at test prep vendors who have by design gotcha questions. Brian's questions, and I think that's what they're mad about. They're not gotcha questions. They're fair. And when people miss, the same ones always come up, Brian. And, I always tell people RTFQ, read the full question, read the full answer set. I said, and I think what they're bent about is that when they read the question and then they understand the question, then I think sometimes they're still bent that they missed it and think it's a gotcha question when it's not. I said, well, listen, you can vent all you want and whine all you want, but that's a fair question. And you didn't answer the question. So it is what it is.
Welcome to the test world.
There you go. There you go. And we did that. We did that. Boom. There we go. We did that. Okay, I'm just getting caught up here.
There we go.
It's like you've seen all my highlights. Feels like I'm grabbing everything and then supplementing. Well, like I say, you can get too close to this. And I think sometimes when you're too close, and I mean, this could be reading, for example. If we're reading too close, you're taking too many notes, you're making too many flashcards. It's like the forest from the tree kind of thing. I think you can get too on top of it. And if you're just trying to read it once through and just kind of taking in what you can, I think sometimes it'll come to you. So I like to say, let this test come to you. Don't be too on top of it. And so sometimes you can be doing too much. I had somebody, they thought I was talking about them too, and she showed me like a pile of flashcards. And then she said, Brian, she watched our video and she goes, I know. I said, okay. Does REITs require pre-filing? No, Jessica. REITs, you buy a REIT for the same reason you buy a mutual fund: professional management, diversification, ease of ownership. The distinction is you're buying a professionally managed portfolio of real estate. How do you make money in real estate? You make money in real estate through price appreciation and pass through of rents or pass through of payments people make on their mortgages. And we have ones that just do mortgages, ones that just do equity. We have hybrid REITs. The next test question is REITs, like mutual funds, only pass through income. They do not pass through losses. And they have to pass through 90%, at least 90% of their net investment income, not losses. Last point. Some REITs trade in the secondary market on New York, for example, and they have liquidity. So it offers a way to make an asset allocation in a liquid form. For years, Jessica, I owned a REIT called Boston Properties, BXP, on the New York Stock Exchange. And when I bought it, it was because David Rockefeller sold Boston Properties, the Embarcadero in San Francisco, for over $1 billion in their stock. And I said, well, geez, good enough for David Rockefeller, good enough for Dean. So I bought 1,000 shares, and I used to walk around the Embarcadero, go, I'm an owner too. I own 0.0000001%. Now that is what we call, Jessica, a publicly traded REIT. We also have what are called non-traded REITs. And just like any other offering, those can be sold using an exempt transaction, using Reg D. So we're selling you a non-traded REIT, then the test question would be making sure you understand it is not liquid, right? So anything you'd add to that, Brian? REITs are there, one or two?
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here thinking, what does she mean by pre-filing? What are we pre-filing?
Well, she could mean one of two things. Jessica could mean pre-filing in terms of advertisements to FINRA, which wouldn't even be on your 7.
That's kind of what I was thinking, yeah.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be on a 7. She could mean pre-filing, like, you have to do a cooling off period. I mean, that would depend on how you're selling it, if it's a new REIT. But I don't think there's any test question I've ever seen, Jessica, about pre-filing a REIT in any form. Have you heard anything about a pre-filing of a REIT? So, Jessica, maybe you can add some more to us for that. Yeah. But everything I just told you about REITs is certainly testable. I don't think you'll get all that, but you'll get some portion of that. Yeah. Asking this for a friend. Will Brian be making a course for the 9 or 10? I don't think so. No. Because, Brian's pretty blessed. We were talking about people who are poor and deserve to be rich, and therefore they work hard, and Brian's already rich. So I can't see him doing a 9 or 10. Brian and I tease each other about this. We're OGs, and in the old business we used to say coupon clippers. I don't know about Brian, I'll speak for myself. We're not into price appreciation. We're into enjoying ourselves at this stage in our lives. So I can't imagine, sometimes people say my collaborations I do, whether it's Brian or Kaplan, or they go, well, Dean, we're not so sure when you're going to turn into a competitor. And I said, well, the first time I ask Kaplan, for example, to make a check payable to Guru Exam Prep Inc., then you should be concerned. But as long as it's Guru Exam Prep LLC, I just want the pass-through, man. Just send me my money. So the other reason I would say that's no is because of all the things we could talk Brian into. I would say, Brian, why are you going to do that? Let's do it SIE, Q Bank, or something like that.
The question I get most often is the CFP. Are you going to do
I get that in insurance, yeah. Maybe we should just permanently post your email. There you go.
Brian Knight. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna have to, I might have to charge Brian commission and staging fees.
Maybe.
Hey, maybe I don't have to buy the drinks.
And then I'll go off grid.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, well, you and Stacy certainly have to come out and visit. We're getting pretty
I
squared away.
know.
It's coming together out here. All right, what's next here? Do reads. I understand that efficient market hypothesis works with the strong form, but can't remember the difference between weak and semi-strong. You want to get that one, Brian?
Yes, I do. This question comes up every day.
It does. We've answered it, asked and answered.
And everybody gets confused over it. No doubt about it. It's so what, my first inclination is, well, if you get the strong, then you have to get the other two.
Uh-oh, Brian, we hit a glitch on your end, I think. Maybe it's my end.
Really?
Am I freezing or you?
I think it's you. I think I'm doing okay.
Let me check my.
You've been sputtering.
You froze, Brian. I'm not sure if that's my end or your end. Hold on. Let me change over to Starlink.
Well, I'm going to continue. Try to anyway. The strong.
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yep, you're there. Everybody's there.
Okay. I think it was my internet, so I went to the Starlink. So Starlink is usually a little more reliable.
When all possible information is available, again, see, I think the confusion is the textbooks point you in one direction. And the test often points you in another direction. I think that's one of the gaps that I try to close in my courses on Series 65 and 66, right? Because textbooks go one way, right? Like the CAPM and all that math that they give with that, that's, completely bonkers as far as the test is concerned. Anyway, it's about how much information is available gives you the different levels of confidence in the theory. The strongest confidence in the theory is when all information is available. Historical price data, public information, which is the corporation, the stocks, financial data, and then any information that was known to insiders that has now been released to the public, like mergers and acquisitions. That's a strong form. So you just back off of that, right? The semi-strong means only historical price data and public financials of corporations. The private stuff is left out. The weakest form is all you have is historical price data. So that's the difference between the three, is how much available information, therefore how much confidence we have in the hypothesis. Less amount of information, less amount of confidence. The most amount of information, the greatest or strongest confidence we have in the hypothesis. There you have it.
Oh, excellent. All right, and I'll link. We had this come up earlier. Variable News. I will link to a video where I go over all this. But let's just real quickly. In a variable annuity, you're using after-tax money you've already paid taxes on, and so you have a cost basis. Cost basis is simply when you turn the money into the investment. It's going to grow tax deferred, and then when you go to get out of it, either random distribution, lump sum distribution, or you annuitize, then part of it's going to be taxed, part of it is not. Now, they don't have any questions on fixed annuities. Fixed annuities don't have an embedded securities product, zero. But in variable annuities, you have investment risk. The only annuity you get from an employer would be through what's called a TSA, and that would be for employees of 403Bs, educational establishments, and employees of nonprofits, 501Cs. And their tax-sheltered annuities would be using pre-tax money. There'd be a zero cost base. So today I will link to a variable annuity video, and Brian's got a little box there. Brian, you want to share that with them?
Yeah, very quickly again. What you're talking about is the taxation. And there's two aspects of that. That's taxation of the monies going in, that's contributions. Or I think predominantly your question about taxes is on distributions. That's an easy answer. All retirement plans, that includes variable annuities, are taxed on distributions as ordinary income. There are no capital gains or losses on retirement plans, employee plans, as you call it, or variable annuities. There's no capital gains. It's all ordinary income. I do a great little YouTube video. It's about 20 minutes long, 18 minutes long on general taxation. I did it originally for Series 7, but it applies to about anywhere.
I'll link to that, Brian, in the video description. Oh, well, John says he's already cool on 144, and that's why he didn't ask. Okay, well, our bad. Our bad.
Good job.
For other people. I'm starting with the firm I worked for previous, and they're giving me 240 days. Well, that's odd. 240 days. That's kind of odd. To get the SIE 7 and 6.
8 months.
Any advice on a stipend? Well, yeah, I oversimplify, I guess, but I would divide that. You're going to need more time for the 7 than any of those. Right. So what's 240 days? Is that like 8 months?
Yeah.
So maybe 3 months for the bill of fudge factor in. 3 months for 7, 2 months for the well, you don't need that for the 66. What do you think? 4 weeks SIE, 2-3 months 7 balance for the 66, and that gives you a fudge factor in case you run into any problems.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's definitely reasonable. I don't think there's anything.
Oh, that's more than reasonable. Yeah, I bet you there's a lot of people would love to have 8 months for those 3.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Averaging around 72. That's where you need to be, Merced. So just make sure you. I've had the honor and privilege, Merced, of tutoring more than one member of the Denver Broncos. So, and boy, if you're a Denver Bronco, Brian, and you retire, you never have to buy another drink in your life or cocktail. Preparing with STC, 5 more chapters to go. Scoring mid-70s, like it. Have a cap in LEM, going to go to the Cuban Bank. Good score. Yeah, I love it. So testing mid-March. All looking good. All systems go.
Yeah, I like it.
Past perfect, February 4th. Take a test. I don't know if you're ready, guy. Did I miss something? Did you tell us what your practice test score? Yeah, you should be good. It doesn't mean we don't want to remediate and push that up, but I think that I'll take 72. I'll take that. If I were a betting person, I bet you're going to make your mark. Looks like we're coming up, Brian. We're already over. Geez. Do board of directors maintain contracts? Would it be every year? The board of directors maintain a contract. We'll tell you that the contract is the investment advisory contract, and the board oversees that process. But they don't have board of directors don't maintain contracts. Investment advisory firms have a contract to manage the mutual fund. So, and then the board, at least 40% of them have to be disinterested and represent the public. All right, Brian, do you got a word want to add to that before we do our?
My goodness, are we at 5 o'clock already? Holy.
Yeah, we're having fun, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Megan wants to know once again your website and contact info. My God. Listen, This is a Series 7 Guru production, not a Test Geek production. I'm teasing. It's Brian at testgeekexamprep.com. Best tip prep for 9 or 10. Nick, I would Notman. I'm a big fan of Notman marks for that. Yeah. Same option, different action. Diesel is for spreads. It is, right? Same option. Call, put, call spread, put spread. That's what SO means. Same option. Different action means buy, sell. So call spread is same option. Call. Different action. You're buying and selling. Now, there you go. All right. Okay. If you want to, let me go get the tool first, Brian. Let's get that here. Giveaway tool. Choose the live stream. Boom. You have to put this in the chat exactly how Brian has it on the board. If you do not, the Wheel of Fortune will not pick it up. And so let me put the picture up there. Present.
Yes, Marcel, again.
What's that? Is Marcel want to win again?
I put that. I used that word not too long ago, and Marcel remembered it. Yeah.
Are we repeating? Are we,
I guess we are. I did it in celebration of your snow and.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of snow. I got to tell you, I had enough sun peek out, Brian, that I didn't have to fire up my generator to recharge my batteries. So just Mother Nature just cooperated there. About 11 o'clock, I got enough juice to recharge. All right. I didn't know, Marcel. He's going to be a good compliance officer. He's monitoring. I guess I never turned off the banner. Let's turn that off. All right, here we go. Now, what you win, let's be clear what you win in the drawing. Marcel has won in previous regimes where what I used to do is give you a free coaching call. And, coaching call, I charge $250 an hour for tutoring, so it's a $250 value. But it wasn't a date and time of your choosing. It would be a mutually acceptable date like Marcel and I are still working on. Now what you win is access on the booking page to any member posted thing. So if you go there and you go to the booking page, you look under classes, you'll find our weekly Q&A jam where we have a whiteboard and we talk about things. We have a book club. I sometimes have a class up there, and that's what you win access to. You win access to what would otherwise be paid material for members. So that's what you're winning. So I just want to be clear on that. And again, I got to start maybe putting a coupon expires on a certain date, Brian, because every once in a while I get somebody who won it 6 months ago, and now they're trying to claim their prize, so. All right, here we go. Whoop. Let's see. I got to hit the draw button. All right, Gregory. So my email, nobody wanted my email, but I'm going to give it anyways. My email, if you should need to get a hold of me because you should be able to go to the booking page, right. Which is Dean Tinney. There's the booking page. And Gregory, claim you're winning. So, but if you can't claim you're winning there, then just send me an email and I'll take care of you. All right. Remember, let me get back to Brian and I. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. What do you say, Brian?
You've got to learn to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel.